Hi, I'm Wendy Aikin.
I'm Judy Stabile.
And I'm Daniella Woolf.
And we're Waxworks West, a school for the Encaustic arts located between Santa Cruz and Carmel on the coast of California.
We've been teaching here together for several years and have sourced materials from around the world that are now available to artists.
And we all come from different backgrounds. Judy in sculpture, Wendy in assemblage, and I've worked in fiber. We're here to share a few of the techniques we have learned in paper and encaustic.
Throughout our demonstrations today, we're going to be using encaustic medium and encaustic paint. Encaustic medium is composed of beeswax and damar resin. This is beeswax right from Judy's farm, and you can see that it still has bees and honey and propolis in it. We buy our beeswax usually from retailers, and what they do is they mechanically pull or extract all of the honey and the propolis out of the wax. So when we get it, it's in a nice, clean, pure form. Be careful that you don't buy beeswax that's been bleached, because we don't like to have those chemicals in our wax.
In this segment, we're going to be exploring collage, and the way that I like to work best is shredding, sewing, and weaving, not necessarily in that order. So the elements are woven in and then put through a sewing machine and creating a collage type quilt, paper quilt. Now that I've completed my sewing, I'm going to wax the elements on my palette. So I've juiced up the palette with medium, and I'm going to simply paint the medium on the paper. And I kind of like it if these elements could kind of stand up in space a little bit. I'm not worried about these poking up.
In our last segment, we talked about transfers, and in this section, we'll be talking about ink, stamping, and resist. I'm going to be doing this project with a grunge board product. It's a pressed paper, and we have 3 types that we use. We have a Modrion kind of design, a circular design, and the cross-hatching design that was used to complete this piece, and that's what I'm going to be showing you. I've heated up paraffin, and I'm using paraffin in this project instead of beeswax because it's much easier to scrape off the paper, and that's part of my process. So I've heated up my grunge board. I've used this little red clip to hang on to it, and I've put it in the paraffin, and I've let it soak, and you can tell when it's ready because the bubbles stop coming out of it. I'm going to bring it over, and I'm going to blot it a little bit on my palette, and I'm going to do a test stamp. And sometimes you need a little something to hold it down. My paper has a little bit of a bow in it, so I just want to make sure that I'm getting a full stamp on there. I'm going to put it back in my wax, and I like the way that looks. It's not going to be perfect, but we're going to overlap the stamp so it really doesn't make a lot of difference. I'm going to move this out of the way and move a little bit closer to my paraffin so that it's not cooling as I move it from the paraffin to the paper. And here we go. And you can see I'm picking up from where I left off. I'm holding it down. Let the wax transfer onto there and lift it up. Put it back into the paraffin.
I'm going to be working towards this example in this demonstration. So the first thing I need to do is prepare my paper. Now this is a Reeves BFK. It's a little bit heavy, so I want to make sure that my paper is fully saturated with medium before I start. So I'm going to move over to the palette, and I'm going to juice up the palette with my medium. I lay my paper down, coat the other side. And I'm really watching to make sure that wax saturates the paper. Now, because I'm applying additional layers to this page, I want to make sure that this layer is nice and thin. I don't want a real thick buildup of wax when I'm painting on paper. So I'm squeegeeing off the wax, the extra medium. And I'm going to let this dry for a second. I'm going to turn and finish. And I'm working with a variety of colors today. The first color that I'm going to lay down is my titanium white. And this is going to be my sky area. And I'm using the titanium white because I love the way the pigments push and pull when other pigments are placed over it. And this is a rose madder that I'm putting on. And you can begin to see how the colors are going to, the transparent colors will lay over each other. So now I'm going to go to my fusing. Again, I've got my paper towels ready just in case. If I set anything on fire, it's probably the paper that is around this. Now I'm going to use a low fuse and a steady hand. As the wax warms up and is fused, you see a slight, or you may see a slight glazing. I can see it from here, and you know that's fused.
A way to achieve 3D results is with armatures, and there are several ways of having armatures. One is having your partner hold on to one. I'm working on the palette here with a woven piece that I want that's flat, and I want to make it 3D. So I've juiced it up on the palette. It's really hot, and I'm going to form it around this armature. And I'm using an armature that is going to release for me. I've got freezer paper. You could use Tyvek or glassine or some inert ingredient. This is really, really hot. We're going to hold on to it until it cools down. So now this has had a chance to cool, and all I'm going to do is remove my armature, and voila, we have a 3D piece that stands on its own.
So during this video, we've been working on long pages. And the reason I wanted to do that was so that I could take my pages and bind them into a sample book. So these are all of the pieces that I've completed during the video. Some of them are waxed, some of them I've left unwaxed so that I can see what the paper looked like before I dipped it. So let's take a look. These books are great to keep in your studio for reference. Sometimes we set a technique aside, we don't do it for a while, and you flip through the book. It's inspirational, it gives you some ideas about what you can do, and it helps you remember the techniques that you learned. The other thing you could do is you can bind blank pages into the book and write down the instructions for the technique. So there we have it. That's my waxing book. Now I've done a simple 3-hole punch pamphlet binding on this. And what I've done is measured in about 1 inch on each side and punched holes straight through and punched a hole in the middle. And I've done a sewing technique and tied it on the inside. You can do this technique so you can tie it on the inside or the outside, but my preference was to have it inside.